Hello and welcome to Team Micro's presentation on elasticity, presented by me, Liam Hoogstad. So, what is elasticity? The definition of elasticity is, well, it's a measure of how much buyers and sellers respond to a change in the market. How do we measure elasticity? Well, we measure the effect on demand in response to a change in either the price of a good, the income of the consumer, or a change in the price of related goods. So that can be either substitutes or complementary goods. We measure the change in demand in response to a change in the price of a good using price elasticity of demand, or P.E.D. For a change in income of the consumer, we measure it with income elasticity of demand, which is Y.E.D. And for a change in the price of related goods, we call that the cross elasticity of demand, or C.E.D. So the price elasticity of demand, or P.E.D. P.E.D. is a measure of how much the quantity demanded of a good responds to a change in the price of a good. So basically that means it is the percentage change in quantity demanded given a 1% change in price. P.E.D. is always negative for a normal good, because if you think about it, if price goes up, demand goes down. The formula for P.E.D. is in the top right if you want to use it. Income elasticity of demand, or Y.E.D., is a measure of how much the quantity demanded of a good responds to a change in the income of the consumer. So it is the percentage change in the quantity demanded of a good given a 1% change in consumer income. Income elasticity of demand is always positive for a normal good, as the quantity demanded increases for a normal good as income increases. So if you think about it, if a consumer is earning more money, they're going to buy more of the goods they normally buy. The formula for Y.E.D, or income elasticity of demand, is in the top right. Cross elasticity of demand. So the cross elasticity of demand is a measure of how much the quantity demanded of a good responds to a change in the price of a related good. It is the percentage change in quantity demanded given a 1% change in the price of a related good. That's meant to be C.E.D, but C.E.D is always negative for a complementary good and positive for a substitute good. That's because if the price of a complementary good, for example, tennis balls to tennis rackets, if the price of tennis balls goes up, the quantity demanded for tennis rackets will go down. And it's positive for a substitute good because if the price of Pepsi increases, then the quantity demanded for its substitute, Coca-Cola, will also increase. The formula for cross elasticity of demand is in the top right. So here are the graphs for the degrees of elasticity. So basically, the larger the degree of elasticity, the more severe the change will be. Right? So if you look at the graph on the left, for an elastic price elasticity of demand, a small change in price will result in quite a big change in quantity demanded. In the middle, if elasticity is 1, then a percentage change in price of a good will result in an equal percentage change in the quantity demanded. So if the price of the good increases by 10%, the quantity demanded will decrease by 10%. And then we have inelastic goods, where a percentage change in the price of the good will result in a less than percentage change in the quantity demanded for that good. So if there's a 50% increase in the price of the good, there might only be a 5% decrease in the quantity demanded for that good. An example of such a good would be cigarettes or any addictive goods. So there's also perfectly elastic and perfectly inelastic goods. So perfectly elastic good would be a homogeneous good where all of its substitutes are the exact same. So any change in price would result in quantity demanded dropping to 0, because no one would buy a good if a more expensive good if there's an identical substitute. And then there's perfectly inelastic, where any change in price for any change in price, the quantity demanded will stay fixed. So examples of this are life-saving medicines or the number of seats in a football stadium, because no matter the price, the quantity demanded will stay fixed. So the determinants of the price elasticity of demand. The availability of close substitutes. So essentially, the more substitutes there are for a good, the more elastic the demand will be. Like if you think about it, Coca-Cola, for example, if the price of, or if there were more substitutes, let's say Pepsi, Fanta, Sprite, 7-Up, the more substitutes there are, the more elastic the good is going to be. So if there's a big increase in the price of Coca-Cola, then people will go to the substitutes because there are many close substitutes. The nature of the good is also a determinant. So is it a necessity or a luxury? If it's a necessity, then the good will be inelastic because people need it to live or function on a day-to-day basis, such as toothpaste, bread, water. Luxury goods are typically elastic because if the price of a Lamborghini goes up, then the demand for the Lamborghini will go down because people do not need the Lamborghini to survive. The definition of the market. So clothes as a type of good in itself may not be very elastic, but within the category of clothes, Louis Vuitton hats would be very elastic because they're not a necessity. You don't need Louis Vuitton hats to survive. And then the time horizon. So essentially, goods tend to be more elastic over longer periods of time. So if the price of a car increases and a customer needs a car immediately, then the customer will have very inelastic demand. So the customer will need to buy the car then and there. But if the customer has, let's say, 5 or 6 years to wait for the car, it can wait for the customer can wait for the price to decrease. For all of these determinants, the elasticity increases as the factors become more extreme. So revenue based on elasticity of demand. So for elastic goods, if the price of a good increases by 1%, the quantity demanded will increase by more than 1%. So to maximize revenue, firms should lower prices. For example, if the P.E.D was 2, if a good costs €10 and 10 units of that good are purchased per day, the total revenue every day is €100. If the price decreased by 10% to €9, then the quantity demanded will decrease by 2, the P.E.D, times 10%, 20%. So 12 units per day. Therefore, the final revenue will be the new demand, 12, times the new price, 9, and it will total to 108. So, therefore, the revenue increased by decreasing price. The opposite is true for inelastic goods. So for if the price of an inelastic good increases by 1%, the quantity demanded will decrease by less than 1%. To maximize revenue, firms should decrease prices. And then I have an example there explaining the opposite effect if P.E.D is less than 1. Who needs to know about elasticity? Well, firms to maximize revenue and profit. Knowing whether a firm's good is elastic or inelastic is extremely beneficial to that firm in maximizing their revenue. For example, cigarette and alcohol companies will increase their prices because they know their goods are inelastic. Whereas luxury good firms will tend not to increase prices a lot because they know their demand will drop drastically if they do so. It's also helpful to know the elasticity of a good for a firm to predict necessary changes in supply if the firm plans on changing the price. Governments also need to know the nature of the elasticity of goods, and this is to maximize revenue. So again, with cigarettes, in Ireland, they have very high taxes on cigarettes because they know they can yield an extremely high tax revenue because cigarettes are an extremely inelastic good.